Welcome Aquarius to your in-depth monthly forecast for January 2026. I'm going to share some of the big themes of the month to begin with, then on screen your event chart at the beginning of January, which always provides an influential backdrop for the whole month. I'll then go through those influences in detail, which you can relate to in terms of your ascendant, sun, or the moon. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. A very warm welcome. Your views, interactions, likes and comments are truly appreciated. We have found that over 50% of people who regularly watch my videos are not subscribers. If that's you, please help us to continue to thrive and do so now. Please also click or tap the bell notification symbol. If you've yet to watch your deep dive astrology forecast for Aquarius for the new year, please see the link underneath this video. So as you come into this new year, Aquarius, we do need to be mindful of your two rulers. Your traditional ruler of Saturn, but also your modern progressive ruler of Uranus. And they're both in contact with Mercury, the planet of communication, which is in a very idealistic part of your chart at the start of this year. Saturn is coming to the end of a big journey that's lasted 29.5 years through the entire heavens, which will complete on the 14th of February. But for now, as you come into this new year, it is still emphasizing your everyday resources, your values, and your foundations. So Mercury being in a tense angle with Saturn suggests it is important to set your expectations realistically. Neptune's there close to the position of Saturn too, also angling in a fragile way to Mercury. So conversations, particularly conversations around group dynamics, will need a little bit of care. But Uranus, on the other hand, is in the part of your chart to do with your home and emotional situation. If you're wanting to change things around that, just be aware that Mercury is in the part of your chart to do with long-term planning, but Uranus can be a little bit disruptive. So just a couple of features about your rulers. But there's a lot of energy developing at the start of this year in the 12th house of your chart. The 12th house is deeply psychological. You had Pluto there for the long term from 2008. It completed its entire cycle in November 2024. As you come into this new year, Pluto's with you and is actually going to greet all the Aquarius players as they join up later this month in your zodiac sign, and that suggests a big shift is coming, but a very exciting and dynamic shift. But there may be some proverbial loose ends that you need to work with in the early part of this month. And if you're someone with a particular passion or interest in psychology, personal development, understanding what really makes us all collectively tick, but including yourself, what a fantastic opportunity the early part of January brings. But later in the month, it's going to be an opportunity for you to dazzle people with your unique individuality. So I kind of feel this January could see a number of old doors close, but not in a particularly sad way, more in a natural way. But you're preparing the ground for such an exciting new phase of your life, if you like, a new epoch. If you've yet to order your personal forecast for the year ahead, you can do so, and you'll get 12 full months from when you order it if you order in January. If you order it in December 2025, you'll get the rest of that year 3 and the whole of the following 12 months. You'll also get your life roadmap report, which is truly influential in terms of understanding our life journey. But at the checkout, if you apply the code ASTRO26, you'll get 50% off. So on the screen now is your event chart right at the start of the year. There's that cluster of energy in the sign of Capricorn, including Venus and Mars. You might find yourself at the start of this year feeling quite nostalgic about a relationship or someone from your past. It doesn't mean to say that you will reconnect, but you may need to still process some of the emotion around that situation. But equally, there could be someone that you're attracted to in the here and now who's not totally available. So for some people, there could be some, clandestine's a strong word, but maybe some discrete connections building up. May just be some soundings. You may find yourself doing some market research around a big idea that you've got. But that more psychological dimension around relationships, because of Venus and Mars being so close to the Sun, really does seem to leap out. But as I mentioned, Mercury is in the part of your chart to do with your friendships, your network, your long-term plan, but is in its detriment in Sagittarius and is in a particularly draining right angle to Neptune, potentially limiting one to Saturn, and the obtuse angle to Uranus just suggests that whatever big ideas you've got, you may need a little bit more time to go into the new year to really work out exactly how they're going to play out. So I wouldn't necessarily make any very dynamic moves straight away. January really is the proverbial game of two halves, that classic sporting cliche. Although Mercury is in, for you, a very friendly location at the very start of the month and year, it is going to be moving later on the 1st, but will stay in touch with Neptune. And I think that shimmering right angle just asks you, particularly when it comes to your financial situation, if you are planning long term, just factor in you may need the first half of January to really think deeply about what your strategy is going to be. Because the collective that exists in Capricorn of Venus, Mars and the Sun can actually be of a great benefit to you and will be complemented later on the 1st as Mercury moves to join them, but it may require you just to step back a little bit, and it will be later in the month when you really emerge in the most incredibly dynamic of ways. But Chiron, often the point of vulnerability in a natal chart, has been tracking backwards through us all since July. And for you, in the part of your chart to do with quick communications, anything to do with technology, your relationship with neighbours or siblings, if you have got some tenderness around any of those areas, for sure, Chiron going direct will help, but it is in a square with Jupiter. Jupiter itself continues its retrograde, but as you come into this year, is actually in a very strong angle to Saturn, your traditional ruler. And what Saturn does is balance Jupiter's potential to overpromise. But Chiron could just tease that into the equation, so just be conscious of that. However, the moon is in the 5th house of your chart, and that's really exciting for the year ahead, your sister air sign of Gemini, and linking back to Pluto, so that gives you a lot of potential to share your enthusiasm, but also your appreciation of the big picture with a lot of passion throughout the month and throughout 2026. But then with Mercury moving into that 12th house, you really are just being asked to think very carefully. Use the first 2 weeks of January just to reflect, refine, and just come to terms with some things that may be coming to an end, maybe things that even relate to your long distant past, and that planning and research that you do is going to prove to be mightily valuable as the month goes on. But if you do find yourself on the full moon of the 3rd feeling a bit discombobulated, particularly around work, if there is a situation where you're not feeling seen or heard, you're not quite sure, maybe your energy feels a little on the low side. With the moon in an opposition with Mars very close to the Sun, you may even feel a little bit churned up. Your emotions could be up and down over the following 2 weeks. But stay with it, because Jupiter in your 6th house is in an opposition with the Sun, and as long as through the 2nd week of this month you just stay in touch with being a bit more protective rather than proactive about what you can do in the outer world, I think it's going to help you to refine very carefully exactly what's going to be important for you. But intriguingly, you could find yourself thinking about people from your past very strongly, and especially on the 6th when we have a Venus cazimi. Cazimis for this month are when the Sun applies in exact unison with another planetary player and magnifies the Sun's brilliance, increases the energy of Venus. And Venus here could see you, if you met someone over Christmas that you were drawn to, building up a connection, but you may want to keep it confidential. You may not want other people to know about it. There is a possibility for some Aquarius people that you're drawn to someone who's not fully available, some kind of clandestine connection. Or for other water bearers, you may also be thinking about whether a current involvement is really viable for the long term. But that involvement doesn't have to be romantic. It could be a friendship, often an area that's hugely important to you. And with Venus and Mars collaborating on the 8th, whatever you're feeling passionate about, it's going to be intensified. But then it's the Sun committing to Mars in a cazimi on the 9th. Now that could be quite tender, and if there is something that's in any way triggering you, it could feel nearer to the surface. If there is a sense of injustice, or you're feeling left out or excluded, I think in some ways you are being asked to perhaps articulate that. But if you are feeling a little bit vulnerable, it may be hard to do that in a way which feels really comfortable. Just know that as the month goes on and Mercury moves forwards and collaborates with the position of Mars and also the new moon on the 18th, some of the things that you do want to say, particularly around your work, will come to the fore, but you can articulate those messages very much more effectively. And what's going to help you is that Venus arrives back in your sign on the 17th. Venus moving into Aquarius is delicious because it really celebrates your ability to get on with lots of different types of people who may be very different to you without judgment, and that's a really very, very valuable thing. A friendship that may have felt that it was distant or you'd not heard from someone, they can get in touch. That can restore your confidence. And in fact, your confidence continues to build up from the 20th when the Sun returns to your sign along with Mercury, and they forge a cazimi on the 21st. Fabulous. Suddenly you're in the present. Those concerns and anxieties and perhaps that reticence that may have shown itself in the early parts of January are making way to a sense of traction, excitement, and really expressing your energies in a very dynamic fashion, which is going to be helped by Mars's arrival in Aquarius on the 23rd and the Sun's link to Pluto. And that's the 4th cazimi of the month, and perhaps the most important, because Pluto since March 2023 has really been evoking in Aquarius people a different kind of energy. And then for the first half of 24, and then from November 24 through to now, it's a chance to really evolve, transform, to release what's no longer working, because Pluto is very much the Phoenix planet, and sometimes things do naturally have to come to a close. So as you come into this last 10 days of the month, you're absolutely supercharged in a way which has not been perhaps the case for a very long time. And because of all these players in the sign of Aquarius, including Mars and Pluto coming into a conjunction at the end of the month, the conviction that you have is really going to be astonishing. So if you do find yourself at times earlier in January feeling a bit tender, feeling a bit vulnerable, feeling that things are going on around you but don't include you, just know that you are going to be the star of the show as January comes to an end. How's that going to play out? Well, you could give yourself a dynamic makeover. You may hit the January sales and give yourself a treat when it comes to your clothes. It may be that you're going to initiate a new beginning around a business idea. If you've got an ongoing enterprise, you can inject it with greater thrust, enthusiasm, drive and passion. But most of all, you're just going to restore a sense of vitality, conviction and authority. And as you come to the end of this month, some of those concerns at the start of January or uncertainties will have just completely dissipated, particularly when Neptune moves out of the sign of Pisces on the 26th, moves back into the fiery Aries, forges a great link to Pluto and those other players in Aquarius, early in Aquarius, and your imagination, your spiritual appreciation and flair can really also be ignited too. I hope you have a great month. If you've yet to order your personal forecast for the year ahead, you can do so, and you'll get 12 full months from when you order it if you order in January. If you order it in December 2025, you'll get the rest of that year 3 and the whole of the following 12 months. You'll also get your life roadmap report, which is truly influential in terms of understanding our life journey. But at the checkout, if you apply the code ASTRO26, you'll get 50% off. All the best and goodbye.